Today we'll be working on the ms310. This is my personal chainsaw, and going to do a little bit of repair to it. We were up on some property of ours in North Florida this weekend, cutting down a tree with approximately a 20-inch trunk, and every time we would get into the trunk of the tree, the chainsaw would bog down, which leads me to believe there's probably some sort of a carburetor issue. I haven't done any maintenance to this thing in a long time, so we're going to take it apart today. See what's going on. Maybe the air filter is clogged up, or carburetor needs an adjustment, or maybe just a full carburetor rebuild. May as well. It's never been done since I've owned it, so maybe it's about time. So stay tuned, and we're going to go ahead and get to work on tearing this thing down. Alright, so as I said before, we have here the Sthil ms310. This is the Farm and Ranch. This is kind of like a pro home owner model of saw. It's definitely not a one that you would use in forestry service at all. You can see here my chain's a little loose, so we need to tighten that up as well. And right now the Sthil logo is upright. When we reassemble this after replacing our sprocket, we're going to flip that upside down. They recommend that you do that every time you sharpen the saw or as needed, and that keeps the bar from warping and flexing. So what we're going to do now is going to go ahead and flip this thing around, and I'll show you the other side. Okay, so here is the bolts that we're going to remove. They're 3/4 inch, so we'll use our 3/4 inch wrench. I'm going to use the box end on it, makes it a little easier. And then, like I said, we're going to get behind here and take a look at our sprocket. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start by removing these nuts off of here. Maybe. There is a correct tool for this. I, however, do not have it, although I think I might buy one. So we'll go ahead and we'll take both of these nuts off. So just as in case you might want to know, I like to over torque things. So like I said, we're going to go ahead and remove this bolt. And once this bolt comes off, we'll be able to remove our guard. So we'll be able to pop that off right here. And this is kind of dirty on the inside, so we're going to clean all this up as well. You can see that right there, how dirty that is, but that's from a weekend of use. And so here we have our drive sprocket, and these are our chain adjustments. And so this is what we're going to take a look at inside of here. So we're going to go ahead and remove this now. It just comes right off the sprocket. Pretty simple. So to pull this off, there's a C-clip here, and then there's a retaining washer. And just from looking at this, I can see that this sprocket has definitely seen some better days. So we're going to go ahead and replace that also. Okay, so again, here's our sprocket that I was talking about earlier, and you can see that right in here is a little C-clamp, and we're going to remove that. Then we're going to remove this retaining washer, and then we're going to take this sprocket off here. And this is what I said is worn out. So I'm going to try and give you a look at that so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So if you can see in here our sprocket, those teeth are missing all kinds of material right here, right? So that's going to lessen the performance of our saw, so we're going to want to replace that. My guess is that this is completely worn out on the inside as well. So give me 1 second here, and we're going to go ahead and pull this C-clamp off. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use a flathead screwdriver, and we're going to use that to pry this C-clamp off. And what we'll want to do is when we're taking that C-clamp off is kind of put one hand over here, and that'll kind of keep that C-clamp from flying across the room, and we don't want to lose that. So again, we're going to go ahead and do that in just a second. Okay, so what I have here, I've gotten a little smaller flathead, and I also have a pick tool. So I'm going to try the pick tool first and see if that works a little better than the screwdriver approach. Alright, and there it is. So we just got our C-clamp off. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove our retaining washer, which is right here. And then our sprocket should just come right off. If it doesn't, you may have to work it a little bit. This one I've never taken off, so I got a feeling we're going to have to work this one out. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this screwdriver here and see if we can pop this sprocket off. Alright. Cut. Alright, here we go. So what we're going to do is try and pry this sprocket off here. It's hung up a little bit, so I think the clutch is hanging on it. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can pry this thing off. Well, it seems to be stuck a little more than I thought it might be. So we're going to try another approach here. Alright, so we got on with a little different approach here. We're going to go ahead and use some pliers to go ahead and grab that. Since we're replacing this, I don't really care about marring it. But if yours is in good shape, it should just come off pretty simple. Alright, well there we go. So we got our sprocket off now. And inside here is a bearing. And we're going to take a look at that also. Here's our bearing. Again, we pull our sprocket off here, just like that. And I don't know if you can see that real well, but in here, those grooves are worn in from the chain use. And the inside is pretty dirty as well. And we can see how the clutch is kind of cut into this as well. So what we're going to do is completely replace this one. And also, on here is a little bearing, needle bearing set. So we're going to want to replace that as well. I believe the new sprocket does come with this bearing. So we're going to take a trip to our Sthil dealer and we're going to get a new sprocket and we're going to get a new bearing. Alright, so here we are now on the back side of this saw. This is where we want to access next. This is where our carburetor is housed. So we're going to go ahead and open this up and we're going to remove our top. Pretty simple, just turn it and it comes right out. As you can see here, this air filter is really compacted full of dust. And we're going to go ahead and take this off with a flat head and we're going to clean this out with some brake cleaner. Alright, so we got our flat head. So now what we're going to do is just remove these two screws, or actually loosen them up, and they come out. They actually don't come out of this assembly itself. You could probably buy a new one of these, but you should also be able to just clean them out pretty easily. Some people use gasoline. I prefer brake cleaner because it's not flammable and you won't catch yourself on fire. So that's always good. So we're going to go ahead and take this off and just pull straight away from our carburetor. And man, can you see how full that is? I'd say I probably need to maintain this thing a little better than I currently do, especially since I've got a lot of woodwork and cutting to do on our property. So we're going to go ahead and take a second and we're going to clean this thing out real quick. Okay, so now we've got our air filter cleaned off. We're now going to work on taking the carburetor off. I'm going to take this off and bring it into the Sthil dealership with me, and that way they can make sure that I get the right rebuild kit for this carburetor. So we're going to rebuild that carb as well. Now to pull that off, you're going to need, I believe, a 7mm, which it's not. It actually probably is 8. So you need an 8mm socket. As well as that, we're going to take out this spark plug, which I'd already pulled this off. So we're going to remove that spark plug also. Okay, so now that we've removed the two nuts from here, we're going to go ahead and pull our carburetor out, and this should come out right with it. So we can go ahead and pull that loose, pull that away. There we go. And then our carburetor should just slide right off of here. Yep, and there we go. So there's our carb coming off. And the carb is going to be connected here to our fuel line, so we can go ahead and remove that fuel line also. Just take your screwdriver here, put a little pressure against that, and it should just slide right off. There you go. Easy peasy. We went ahead and removed our carburetor. So I'm going to take this with me just in case, because I don't know if they're going to require any kind of number off of this. So I'm going to bring that with me also. And then I'm probably going to go ahead and buy a new fuel line as well. And we'll replace that fuel line just as a precautionary thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with it necessarily, but we'll go ahead and get a new one also. Here's another retainer, and then that holds in another piece here for the carb to sit into. I'm not going to take that out right now, but I am going to clean all this up. We'll probably go ahead and stuff a rag in there to prevent any kind of debris from going down into the engine itself. Up here, like I said, we've gone ahead and removed our spark plug cable, and we're going to go ahead and remove that spark plug right now. That is going to be a 3/4 inch socket, and we'll go ahead and get that taken off. Should be fairly simple. I'm going to take that out. Well, let's try that again. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever used Icon before, but these are pretty nice tools. 90 tooth ratchet, get them at Harbor Freight. Won't break the bank like certain other brands will. Anyway, this is our spark plug. It's got a little carbon buildup on it, but it's not terrible. But I think we're going to go ahead and replace this anyway, since we got everything apart. Go ahead and start with a whole new fresh system. Again, we're going to go ahead and clean all this up. I'm going to run out to my local Sthil dealer, and we're going to go ahead and pick up some of these parts, and then we're going to come back here and put it all back together. Okay, so what we've done now at this point is we've pulled out our spark plug, and I took a little bit of this hemp rope and stuck it down inside the cylinder bore, and what that's going to do is allow us to lock that cylinder in place so that we can take off the clutch. Now, this clutch is got the reverse threads, so the righty-tighty, lefty-loosey doesn't apply here. So we're going to have to take this off, reverse, right, because it's reverse threads. It's a 19mm nut here on the end, and we'll go ahead and just take that off. Should spin pretty freely from that point. So I actually had gone down to the Sthil dealers in my area now. These guys are in Clearwater, Florida. Their name's Royal, Edger, and Mower. Super nice guys. Got all my parts ordered up. So what we did is we actually bought a whole new clutch, and we bought the new clutch sprocket, and we also went ahead and just bought a complete new carburetor, which has all been ordered. Basically, they don't sell a true carb rebuild kit for these. They have to kind of hodgepodge it and piece it together. So I decided to go, and I opted just to go ahead and get a new carburetor. Now, I could have probably ordered one off of Amazon for 1/3 of the price that we paid for the new one, but I really want Sthil made and Sthil spec'd carburetor, just so that we don't have anything happen when we're out on the property again cutting. I don't want to risk that chance of having a cheap part fail on me. So we went ahead and ordered a brand new Sthil carburetor. We got a new clutch. Here you can see, I don't know if you can see that or not, it's kind of burned up a little bit, so we went ahead and replaced that. Here's the inside of this, and we can see that's burned that up a little bit too. And again, our sprocket, it has been dug into pretty good by the chains. So anyway, our parts are ordered, and so now we just gotta wait for them to come in, and they'll be in here in the next couple days. When they get in, we'll go ahead and do our full reassemble. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and clean all this up. And oh, just one other thing. Behind this washer here is our worm gear for the oiler. And I'm going to clean all this out as well and make sure that the oiler functions. And because we don't want to burn up a chain and bar. So we're going to go ahead and get all that cleaned up as well. So we'll be back in a jiff as soon as we have our parts in.